sponsored by Ocean Wave Cleaning and Restoration.
This is Fashion Monger Academy. As we continue our celebration of Black History Month, Part 2 takes us on an insightful journey into the invaluable contributions and personal testimonies of our esteemed guest. This episode promises an enriching experience, shedding light on the profound impact of Black history on our present and future. Part 2 episode of our Black History Month series offers a profound exploration of contributions and personal stories. Through the lens of our guest, we gain a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of Black history and its enduring significance. Join us as we honor the past, celebrate the present, and look forward to a brighter future. Black History Month is important because it highlights the significant contributions of African Americans to society, confronts the realities of racism and discrimination, provides a deeper understanding of American history, inspires activism, and encourages critical thinking about the past and present by recognizing the often overlooked achievements of Black individuals across various fields. Through these efforts, we strive to create a more inclusive and equitable society where the legacies of Black Americans are honored and celebrated, ensuring that their stories and accomplishments continue to inspire future generations.
And is it true slavery didn't end? Was the last place to end was Mississippi not too long ago?
Emancipation Proclamation was actually in 1863.
Yeah.
All right. Fought the war in 1865. But a lot of these states still have these things on their books.
Right,
yes.
right. So I did
believe
hear that.
that
right.
was the story
Okay,
that came out about Mississippi.
Yes.
They had some things still in their books in regard to slavery
Yes.
in the 13th Amendment.
Darrell Murkison. Darrell's work experience is rich and varied. He has served as a social worker, educator, and firefighter, dedicating his life to public service and community enrichment. Darrell's lifestyle reflects his commitment to his community. He has held numerous significant positions, including evening program coordinator for Greg House, after-school program for youth, where held yearly Black History events, president of the North Shore NAACP, a president of Community Brotherhood, executive director of the Community Minority Cultural Center, assistant football coach and track coach at Lynn Classical High School, a track coach at Pickering Middle School in Lynn, Massachusetts. Through these roles, Darrell has made a lasting impact on many lives, demonstrating leadership, dedication, and a genuine passion for fostering community spirit and support.
As a Black man in America, can you explain your Black experience being a Black man in America? What was your experience?
Well, I would say my experience as a Black man in America here, it's been challenging to say the least. You find out at an early age, from your parents, that things are different for you. So you, in order for our survival, and our well-being, we had to always kind of faction our behavior, our speech, any actions that we may take to just try to, I would say, fit in and survive in advance if possible. We always had to kind of make ourselves small, so the challenges for a Black man are, as Richard stated earlier, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far, but if you know this going in, which the vast majority of us do know and understand it, we work hard, we try hard, because we have goals, aspirations just like anybody else, and I think that's the real sadness about the whole thing and misrepresentation is that black men, black people don't want to achieve the same things as everybody else. Like our humanity is less than someone else's. Our ambitions are less than anyone else's, and they're not. So we continue to work and strive, and as you can see, many of us have achieved if given the opportunity. If given the opportunity, but it doesn't make it easier.
Right.
It's been very difficult and challenging, to say the least.
Sharecropping. Sharecropping in America was a labor system that replaced slavery in the American South after the Civil War. It was particularly prevalent in Mississippi. The sharecroppers rented land from planters in exchange for a portion of their crops, usually between 30 to 50%. They received tools, animals, fertilizer, seeds, and food from the landlord's store on credit. They had to pay the landlord back at high interest rates, often resulting in perpetual debt. The landlord determined the crop, supervised its production, and controlled the record-keeping to ensure repayment. The impact on African Americans. Sharecropping effectively acted as a form of re-enslavement for many African Americans. The living conditions were crowded living quarters. Long hours, often without days off, especially during planting and harvesting. Sharecropping was a way for former slave owners to keep their labor supply. Sharecroppers often worked the same land they had worked as slaves. Though they were no longer property, their economic dependence on landowners and the cycle of debt kept them in conditions very similar to those they endured under slavery. Thus, while sharecropping provided a veneer of autonomy, it was in reality a harsh and exploitative system that perpetuated the oppression of Black Southerners long after the Civil War had ended.
Richard, can you tell us about land? What happened there?
Richard Felton was born in the deep south of Mississippi, in an era marked by the harsh realities of Jim Crow laws. His lineage traces back to sharecroppers, who toiled the land under challenging conditions. Amidst the oppressive segregationist policies that defined the South, Richard made the courageous decision to migrate north, ultimately settling in Lynn, Massachusetts.
If you was considered a person of status, and land come about actually between the Revolutionary Wars, if you fought on the right side and your side won, your reward was land. And land just wasn't given out in 2 or 3 acres, it was given about in millions of acres. If you was in the British War with the Americans and you was victorious, which America become victorious, all of its leading military attaches was granted large portions of land. That made you a status symbol, a status quo within the country of America because you own something. And that's how they value a person in America, especially as a white person. And when it came around to us as being slaves, if you was able to own a partial of land, then you was considered a person of status. And they never wanted black people to become a person of status because that means that we could own, but we still cannot vote or protest or demand, but at least you had a status, a landowner. So that's how land becomes very important for us as black people because we are considered someone once we got land. But land was actually issued out by not only the British but the Americans, whichever side was victorious in the states of the colonies at the time. If you won the state of Ohio, the captains, the lieutenants, the majors and colonels was all a portion of a mass piece of that land that they had captured as a state. And at the end of the war, when the American came victorious over Britain, they lost that status, and that's how land was then developed, distributed through American military peoples. So land holds a status of importance within the American culture. So they said, we as black peoples, we are taught, once you start to rise, make sure you go buy a house that's entitled you to be somebody. You have made a step in the right direction. And that's where they come up with, when they took him at the end of the Civil War and everything, they come up and they said, okay, we're going to give them 40 acres and a mule or two. That's why they wouldn't allow that to happen, because we now would become a person of status. You will have a right to be represented and represent yourself as a person, not as property. You no longer is property, you are owning property, and you became a person of status by owning land. Yeah. So instead of giving you land, they said, we'll sharecrop you some land. We own it, but you sharecrop it.
Okay, so that's where the farming and everything.
That's why the farming part, that's it. We're not going to give you that 40 acres. We'll sharecrop that 40 acres with you. And we allow you to live off of that 40 acres, but we give you 10% of that, and we take the 30% of that sharecropping. So that's how sharecroppers come in, because my grandparents, they were sharecroppers.
Okay.
We had about 50 or 60, 100 acres, but we owned a sharecropper that we allowed to receive 10% of their whole sharecropping business.
And what was that?
Land was a status quo.
And what part of South was that?
That was the state of Mississippi.
Okay. Oh, wow. And when did you migrate up to Massachusetts?
The migration wasn't directly to Massachusetts. As a young man, a young boy coming into age and being aware that the justice of the state of Mississippi was against me, my grandmother says that I was too voiceful. I didn't want to go across the street to let a white man pass. I didn't want to go to a water fountain to let a white man drink. I didn't want to go through the back door to let a white man walk into the front door. I want to be equal to him, so I became very agitated and voiceful. So my grandmother took and got me out of dead of night out of the state of Mississippi and sent me to Florida, because I was becoming a radicalized person against the oppression that I seen for the black peoples.
What age was that?
That was 10.
Wow.
It was an old saying that in Mississippi, every house had a shade tree. That's the biggest fallacy in lie that was ever told. Every shade tree was a hanging tree. You could go out there and if your family did something wrong, it's a hanging tree or whipping tree. It had a big shade tree, but that's what it was for. So I seen those things as a young person down there. So I became very voiceful.
Okay.
And so she says, it's time for you to leave before we can't find you one day.
So you witnessed that?
Yes.
You actually saw it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Because you hear the stories, but I always want to know, did anyone actually
I really
have the experience and see it?
Black body floating down the river in the city. Those are the things that I become very voiceful for. And because I don't just say I read it, I lived it.
And you lived it. That's right. Right, you were in it. Okay.
So, and that's why I get kind of agitated now when I see things reversing back to 50, 60 years ago.
Yes.
That's the process we are in right now.
Right.
Up next, Black Heritage Tablescape Decor by Sebrina Underwood. The aroma of collard greens and cornbread wafted through the air, mingling with the lively chatter of guests. Sebrina's meticulous attention to detail was evident in every corner of the room, from the rich, warm hues of the table linens to the intricate motifs that celebrated the rich tapestry of Black heritage. As the evening unfolded, The guests were not only nourished by the hearty dishes, but also by the profound sense of community and history that Sebrina had so thoughtfully curated.
So, Richard, if you could talk about the soul food in the South.
The farm. And the farm was, that's where we got our food from. That's where you literally ate from, was the farm. You raise your pigs, you raise your chicken, you raise your duck, you raise your turkeys. Even though we was sharecroppers, but I can remember when my mother used to use Sears and Roebuck to order all of her chickens and ducks and things through the mail. Through Sears and Roebucks or J.C. Penney's, through the mail. Everything came through the mail.
Oh my goodness.
And so we used to take it, get our chickens and our ducks and our turkeys and things, or you was someone down the road that was raising the same thing and you traded goods. If you had more white potatoes than sweet potatoes, you traded some of those goods to take and make or balance your meal out. And the soul food meal was fatback. When they kill a pig, you divide the pig up into portions and sizes, and depending on what you wanted that's where you made your lard from.
Okay.
That's where you made your cracking from. That's where you got your bacon from. That's got your pigtail, your pig foot, your pig ear. So there wasn't too much loss of that pig once you got through there. And the cow was the same thing. But cows was very unique because it takes a long time for them to grow. So you, out of a family, when I say a family, it wasn't just one household. It was the whole household. And my grandmother had 6 siblings. And out of that one cow, those 6 siblings got their meat for the year.
Wow.
When they got them cut up and butchered up the cow, and with the pigs and cow and when they didn't butcher just one pig, they butchered like a dozen all at once. So the family ate. So that's how the family ate, and the vegetables was the same thing. But you had your collard greens. The only thing I think we didn't raise was rabbits because it was plentiful out there. So you could go.
I was going to ask you about the rabbit.
The rabbits you could plentiful out there, and you go rabbit hunting, and there
squirrels.
And squirrels. Fish was another one. Any pond you could go to. Turtles.
Okay. Yeah.
Was another one. So those are how we took and got the meats, and the meats wasn't a refrigerator meat. They had the smokehouse. Smokehouse was one thing, and the salt house was another thing. So because your meats had to be preserved, all of your fruits and things, your vegetables had to be preserved because they do have winter time down there. So they had to be preserved. So you salt your one part of the room down, and the other part was you salt the floor, but your vegetables went over there to keep the rats away from it.
Yep, okay.
Because otherwise the rats would have got in there and ate your vegetables up.
Right.
But the smokehouse, most of the smokehouses didn't need no protection because they didn't want the smoke to get the rest stayed away from that. So those are the things that when you say soul food, when you went there, and it wasn't a what I call turning gas. You turn the knob and gas come on. Chop the wood. Had a stove to cook your food on. A 4-hour, 6-hour stove to cook your food on, or have a fireplace with a pot hanging on it and you cook your food. So, but in the soul food was just as we sitting here today was cornbread, biscuits. Fried chicken. And mostly a lot of fried chicken because the chicken fed a lot of people. The pork, the beef, the fish, because all those things can be preserved. But when you sit down to a Sunday dinner, you're guaranteed to have cornbread, collard greens, black-eyed peas, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, and always a piece of meat on the table. Always a piece of meat. And today I see my sister here, she cooked us some collard greens, but some fat back in. I pushed the fat back to the side. But that was what we grew up with. That was called soul food. Because grandma, your mother, put a lot of time into cooking that meal. I can remember we grew our own beans.
I was going to ask you about the black
We grew our own dry beans. We grew our own rice. We used to take in, for the cornbread, we ground our own meal.
Okay, yep, cornmeal.
So these are cornmeal. So you had a big grinder and you put it in there and you sat there and you ground it. Your butter, you made your own butter.
Oh, churn your own butter.
You churn your own butter. So those are the things that when I says that I was 10 years old and I had got kind of upset about the man going to the store and getting all his belongings from the store, and I had to sit there and trying to find out why was I different just because of the color of my skin was that. And I had my grandmother sit down and told me, she said, baby, that's her soul, she said, baby, she says, you're gonna bless me for what I'm about to tell you. She said, but the way we had to live was the way we had to survive.
That's right. That's right.
We survived off of what the white man did not want.
Right.
And I brought up about the chitlins. The innards, they killed a pig, but they didn't want the innards. So they gave them to us because they said that we wasn't no lower than what they was giving us. But we found out how to make a meal out of it.
Yep.
And now they cost $25 for a pound of chitlins right now.
So why is fashion very important and style very important for the black culture?
Church. The tradition of the church wardrobe and black women wearing hats to church. The tradition of black women wearing hats to church originated in the early 20th century and is deeply rooted in African culture. The hats were often designed after West African hairstyles, embodying a rich cultural heritage. These elaborate hats were typically worn on Sundays, providing an opportunity for black women to celebrate after a week of hard work. For many African American women, church hats are more than just a fashion statement. They are a powerful symbol of cultural identity. The tradition of wearing these hats to church is a way to honor God, express creativity, and celebrate culture. The hats also symbolize success and status within the community. The more detailed and elaborate the hat, with wide brims, lace, rhinestones, and feathers, the more it represented success. Moreover, the tradition of wearing church hats can also symbolize strength and resilience. In the face of discrimination and societal challenges, these hats have served as a beacon of pride and dignity.
It's a way of expressing. It's who we are and where we came from. Because clothes and dance go together.
Yeah.
They are a combination of who we are and where we came from. We originated from a culture that was always dancing with music and expression. And clothes is a continuation of those expressions. And if you ever went to the churches down in the southern part of the country, they're always in a 2 or 3 piece suit, big hats, fancy colors. They're very flamboyant in colors because that is where we originated, got our belief that we were somebody. We are it. We are made it because we have a belly full. Now we got the clothes to show that we are expressing ourselves in color in the culture of dancing and the culture of fashion.
Yes, because I don't agree with the dress "come as you are" for the church now, because I feel like we're losing that, and that I think that's so important to my experience going to church, wearing your Sunday best. Now, you can come in with jeans and sweatpants and pants down to your ankles or what have you. I think they took that "come as you are" and ran with it. You know, I can see they don't want people to spend money on clothes. They just want more enrollment. But I think we're losing it.
Modern times. Today, the tradition of wearing church hats experienced a decline as younger women began to reject the custom as the wig stole the tradition. Since 1960s. However, this tradition saw a revival in the 1990s as more women began to embrace their cultural heritage and the significance of the church hat. It is a testament to the enduring spirit of African American women and their ability to honor their heritage while navigating the challenges of the modern world.
Yeah.
But I think in being open-minded and listening to scripture, I think a lot of the modern day preachers are listening to this scripture, and they don't want clothes to be a deterrent
Yes.
from people who come in and want to feel the spirit, all right?
Yeah.
Well, that we get so, what they say, highfalutin, right?
Yeah.
We're dressed up, I got my suit on, my hat, pile, I'm in here, and then this guy walking past the church, he might have been through something or just feeling a certain way, and he only got some jeans up. Nah, you can't come in here. You can't come in the house of the Lord because you're not dressed like me. So they said, come on. Everybody come on. But at the same
That
time,
might be his Sunday best too.
you don't know what somebody's
Exactly.
Sunday best is. Or he's just feeling something that day. Come on in. But I understand the foundation. Now, if you got some choices, you know, and you just don't feel like going, or whatever, you just want you got clothes. I know you. You got clothes. You just acting up. Go put your clothes on.
Right.
Come on in. But that should not be a deterrent for anyone to come, or even I can go a step further, right? Even for that person I'm saying that has something. Say if me or Richard, whatever, we might be running around here helping somebody else, and we got, we're a little dusty a little bit, and I'm saying, I'm not gonna go because by the time I go home and come back, I'm gonna miss church. Now come on, man. You've been doing everything you've been doing. We know how you normally roll. Come on in. So I want people, and I would think that other people want people to come in and do what they have to do. So I think that's kind of where that is. But I understand both of those things.
Yes.
Well, that's always a thing. That's like, do you go to work wearing your pajamas? No, you know you're going to work. Because people now going to work with do-rags on their head. They're going to work with bonnets. Okay. So that's why I mean, you're enabling, and they're just turning all that around. All that hard work that we put in, not to have the bonnet when you're in the field. You got to separate the two. And now they're wearing it to work.
Right now, fashion is a personal thing for everybody these days.
But a bonnet is something that you sleep
I know,
in,
but we're letting it go.
And you do rag.
So I mean, I just straight up say dress code. Dress code
That's
is
not acceptable.
Should be in order at all times. I don't care if
In
it
case
is
of
church,
emergency-
work,
in case
or
of
what have
emergency,
you.
that's a
Dress
different
code.
story. In case of emergency, because we all have emergency
That's
in our
right.
life, and
That's
if
different.
if I got my do rag on, I got an emergency, and I
That's
got to get to the
different.
hospital. I'm gonna get to the hospital
Yeah,
with my do rag.
that's different.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we have to keep all that in
Right.
and take all that in consideration when we're talking about church fashion,
Right.
street fashion,
Right.
and around the house fashion.
Circumstances
and
are all
circumstances
different. That's right.
all plays a major role
Exactly.
in what we do today, because it's a very busy society in which we live in today. It used to be, we know that our grandparents from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night going to be in the field working. So it was just one dress. And that's why they did their Sunday dress, because they was out of the fields at that time. There was a time that they was allowed to go to church. So they did their best. And that transferred over to us that came along in that period of time. But now is they dress is slacks. I see people going to school right now with pajamas on.
Exactly. Spandex.
That's-
Everything. And that's what I mean. There's a dress code in school.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm saying. There's dress codes everywhere you go.
So it's what we allow in
matter.
society.
Yeah.
It dictates right now is what's going on.
Right.
Yes.
Richard dedicated his professional life to serving the community as a Massachusetts state trooper. The Massachusetts State Police, an agency under the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, is tasked with enforcing the law and regulating vehicles across the state. After 27 years of steadfast commitment and service, Richard retired from his esteemed position. Beyond his career in law enforcement, Richard has made significant contributions to community enrichment. He has been actively involved with the Concerned Black Citizen of Lynn and the Black Platform of Lynn, working diligently to uplift and empower the community through these organizations. Richard Felton's journey from the segregated South to becoming a pillar of his community in Lynn is a testament to his resilience, dedication, and unwavering commitment to justice and equality. In this segment, our guest shares their remarkable contributions to the community and society at large. From pioneering initiatives in education and social justice to groundbreaking achievements in arts and sciences, their work stands as a testament to the enduring legacy of Black excellence.
Question: can you highlight the many ways that Black Americans work to shape America and reflect how the invisible past of labor contributed to the community and the industries, economic stability, personal growth, social wealth, all that? Can you go into that a little bit, Richard?
Yes, I can. What I've been doing over some time is trying to find out what the Black people's contribute to the country as a whole, and it's enormous. It's a long list of Black innovators and people that have contributed to the makeup, the shape, and this country as a whole. I have just a couple names that I like to take and throw out and gives the audience and everyone just an idea that we have contributed to this country as a big whole. And one of them is C.R. Patterson and Son. They are a car manufacturer, a Black car manufacturer that made cars out of the state of Ohio. The father and son business, it was thriving. Back in the early 1900s, end of the 1900s, they made automobiles. So those are just one of a list of people that I have. Annie Cooper was another one. She was an educator. She was a speaker. She's an activist. So the Black peoples in this country that our forefathers and our great-great-grandparents didn't know nothing about, and we was not educated within the school system of these type of people. So they built this here country. Literally, we know of the ones that came along in the 50s and 60s and 70s, but there was Benjamin Buckner. He's another one. And we're talking about a mathematician. We're talking about architects that design half of LA. Is all designed by a Black man. LAX was designed by a Black man. Outcome of our race. We have to look back on those people that set the foundation and the contribution that they have made. Medicine. Remember, the first open heart surgery, the tool that allowed heart surgery to be performed professionally was designed by a Black man that a white man took the credit for. Later on in life, they gave him the credit, but it was the Black man that made that possible.
Yeah, just going back real quick, I think you might have missed one right here, because Richard was talking kind of fast. The first inventor that he talked about was Benjamin Banneker, right? He was a mathematician that laid out the plans for Washington, D.C., and he was in LAX as well, right?
Yes.
And then if you're talking about the the doctor, the first heart surgeon, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams.
Yes.
That was down in Washington, D.C. All right?
So those are the black peoples that we have to really give credit to. I give credit to all those that come along, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, but those that literally fought slavery, because they were slaves, and some of them escaped slavery, and some of them was freed, and some of them that they had to remember, they had to learn how to read by the slave master taking them to the grocery store and giving them a list and say, boy, go get this, a girl, go get that. Or the black lady of the house says, here's a list, go to the store, madam, mommy, and get this right here. And they had to figure out how to read, and that's how we came to the understanding that we was a well-educated society. We was well-educated. And it was not just in this country, but as we was transferred from old country to new country to being a slave, we had to understand that there was a history before our slavery got here. We was kings and queens that could read, write, and figure out things well before we became slaves. We was not allowed to once we became slaves because we was a threat to society. But we have a strong foundation and innovative mode already built into us as black peoples.
Okay. And what inventor do you have, Darrell? Do you have some inventors that you like to mention?
Oh, I'll just mention a couple offhand. And people are probably pretty familiar with these, but again, I think it bears repeating because, as we know, the way our educational system is set up today, a lot of our young people, black and white, are denied the achievements of famous African American people. So just because it's become a little bit common to me and some others, it may not be common to the majority of people that are out there. I'd like to start with things that people really know about. You know, something that transformed the world would be the traffic. That red, yellow, and green traffic light was invented. That was invented by Garrett A. Morgan. The traffic light. Also, something that we use every single day that again has really permeated the mainstream of American in the world is the use of a gas mask. The gas mask was also invented by Garrett Morgan. All right, and used in World War II during war times. We think about some things that you hear a lot about famous inventors and the Industrial Revolution, but something happened right here in the city of Lynn that jump-started the Industrial Revolution was the shoe lasting machine.
Yes.
And that was invented by Jan E. Matzeliger.
Yes.
Right here in the city of Lynn. So those are three things right there. The gas mask, the traffic light, and the shoe lasting machine that transformed Lynn into the shoemaking capital of the world. And that was done by a black man. And many of us living right here don't even know it.
Don't even know.
Called Hidden Colors, which speaks about African American, or not just African American, but black history from a global perspective. Not just things that happen with African American people here in America, but from a global perspective. And because we're not just relegated to right here in America.
Right.
We were brought to this country like nobody else. You know, and it bothers me sometimes when people say we all came here as immigrants. No, we did not. No, we did not.
Right.
I think we have a different history than most people here. And we have just as much, if not more, of a claim to being Americans here, even though it was colonized by Europeans, not us.
Right.
Colonized and taken over by Europeans, but we helped to build this country.
Right.
If you know the true history.
True. And what?
Darrell Murkison. Richard Felton.
And what part of Africa were the slaves literally taken from?
Are you gonna go with me or Richard?
Darrell, I'm sorry.
Okay, the transatlantic slave trade actually started back in the 1400s,
Right.
right?
Say 15,
By the
14.
Portuguese,
Yeah.
but we first landed here in the United States in 1619. But it was actually started back in the 1400s by the Portuguese. It was mainly, Africans were mainly taken from the west coast of Africa. That might include Ivory Coast, Senegal, Ghana, Cameroon, a lot of different countries like that on the west coast of Africa, because that's what they first encountered on the coast, and it was more difficult for them to go inland
Okay.
to Central
Okay.
and East Africa.
Just to elaborate on what Darrell is saying, the slave trade wasn't started out as a slave trade. It was started out paying a debt for war. They had to, if a king or queen didn't have enough money or revenue to sponsor their war in the confines of the country of Africa, they went to Portugal and asked Portugal, I will sell you some of my captives if you give me the money to finance my war against my neighboring tribes. So and that's what we had to understand, is that it didn't start out as a trade slave. It just became profitable, very profitable. Said, hold it, if I can sell my slaves to Portugal, now I can sell them to anyone else, and that's why it became a more of a selling of each other.
Right.
But they was all captives when they first started. They was captured from one village to another, was captured, and they had to feed them. And Portugal came in there and says, we'll take them. I'll pay your debt, and I'll take everything that you don't want. And that's how slave trade actually originated off of.
And where were the slaves dispersed? How far out? Where did they go? I heard Spain, Mexico. They really went everywhere.
That wasn't just only when they first started out. Remember, it was the Europeans were the first one to take incorporate slave labor. Spain was a big country. Portugal was one of the major ones. But Spain, Britain, France, India, all of those became part of, because if they was more wealthy and they didn't have to go transatlantic, they just went from coast to coast, and that was more, it was short money, short transfer, and that way they could get as many slaves as they could to different of those countries. It wasn't until it became profitable that they took and went from Africa to the Caribbean. And everybody think that America was the first opening, but it was not. A lot of our ancestors first landed in Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, Haiti. Those were the first, and they transferred from there. Some of our ancestors are still in Trinidad, Barbados, and Haiti, but then they were sold from there as a transfer to America of the cheap labor.
Activism. Black activism in the United States has a long history, marked by various movements and strategies to combat racial discrimination and achieve equality, including the pre-Civil War abolitionist movement, the civil rights movement of the mid-20th century with key figures like Martin Luther King Jr., and more recent movements like Black Lives Matter, all using methods like legal challenges, protests, boycotts, and community organizing to fight for social justice and civil rights.
some people that we call revolutionaries, right? They put their life on the line, their careers on the line, fighting for just basic human rights along with civil rights. And just recently, again, I'm speaking of young people who've always been a catalyst for change in this country and around the world. And most recently, one of the people that got a lot of notoriety for this is a professional football player, played for San Francisco 49ers, a quarterback nonetheless, by the name of Colin Kaepernick. And this was brought on by, I think, the death of Trayvon Martin, a young man that was killed by a vigilante, you know, and he was 14 years old. And then Michael Brown, who was shot by a police officer and left in the middle of the street. All these different things spurred this, I'd say, this movement called Black Lives Matter. And we talk about Black Lives Matter, you know, to me, I tip my hat to each and every one of those young people that initiated this, and I did a little bit of my part as well, but I teach them it's always tough to be first, to start something. And that brings me back to Colin Kaepernick. When those young people were killed, that I just aforementioned, Colin Kaepernick, being a professional football player, National Football League here, the most famous and popular sport in America is football. And they're trying to make it. But he knew he had a platform in which to express himself, which everybody else did too, but he took the initiative.
Right.
He took upon himself to every time, because he had this platform, everyone's looking, he's got everybody's attention, most of the attention, when the national anthem is played, Star Spangled Banner. So what he decided to do while the national anthem was playing was to simply take a knee.
I think he sat too. First.
He may have initially sat down. I think he got a little pushback about that, so he came up with the rest of the team. He was out there with everybody else. He just took a knee.
Yeah.
Just so people could recognize his protest. It was a silent protest. Didn't say a word. Just took a knee. And a lot of people took offense to that. And they're saying, why is he taking a knee during our national anthem? Our national anthem? Okay. Let me explain to you why he took a knee during the national anthem. And a lot of people would say it's disrespectful to our military. It's disrespectful to our flag. You have to beg to differ because you don't know the true story behind the whole thing. Most of us don't. It had nothing to do with the United States military. Nothing at all. Even though the United States military fought, which a lot of black people fought in the military as well.
Yes, we did.
All right, and died for this country as well.
Yes, we did.
All right, it was not disrespecting those people. It was simply to bring attention to all of the wrong and the atrocities that were perpetrated by this country as a whole. So it's a political statement. And if you know, and it was a protest against the anthem itself. Not the flag, the anthem. Now, many of us don't know this, so I'm putting this out there to people. If you were ever have the privilege or the opportunity to look up the Star Spangled Banner and see it in its entirety, it is a racist anthem. Mm-hmm. They only play the one that you hear and everyone screams about in these sporting events. They only play the first verse of that song. If you look up the whole song, in that song is telling you that they want to keep black people as slaves, and if they're not kept as slaves, they will die in a grave. In that same song, if you play the whole thing. Wow. And he was protesting against that, but many people don't know it. So they say ignorance is bliss sometimes, but look it up before you start, vilifying other people for what they do.
Right. It had nothing to do with the flag, even though the flag kind of does not sometimes represent the black culture. So I can see the argument, right? So how can you salute and pledge something and they don't even honor you?
And in that same song, let me just reiterate, that song, in their words, is saying that the slaves will die in their grave in that song. So am I going to honor that?
Right.
Am I gonna honor that? Absolutely not.
Right.
No, not that song.
Nope. So people needed to understand, and they took it and went and ran with it. Try to say the military and the flag, disrespecting that. So thank you for clarifying that. And Darrell, can you go over the past and present of the activists?
It's been a long time. You know, a lot of people don't really think of it this way. When they think of Black history, they're just thinking again what's happened, you know, currently here in America. But people fighting back for their own freedom has been going on for a long time, right? So since the Europeans colonized the African continent and they brought people here to the Americas and throughout the Caribbean, slave labor has been used for tobacco, sugar cane, all those different things throughout the Caribbean. That's where it was really grown, and then into the Carolinas with rice, in the southern states with cotton, all these different things. But what I'd like to bring up is that one of the first rebellions against being enslaved took place in Haiti, and it was led by a man called Toussaint Louverture. So at that time in Haiti, they had been colonized and brought over from Africa to, you know, pick this tobacco and grow certain things like that. But he led a revolution out of Haiti, and to this day, people will tell you that Haiti is probably the poorest country, not even probably, is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And you might think, why is that? Why is that? You know, it's right in the Caribbean, and Haiti is like not very far from the United States. It's surrounded by all these other islands. Dominican Republic is part of it. Why is Haiti still the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere? And that's simply because of its involvement with the slave revolution. The only successful revolution in history in the Western Hemisphere was by the Haitian people in Toussaint Louverture. And to this day, they still have, the United States and other people won't trade with them, won't give them many different things, and they remain poor because economically. So it goes back a long way. It goes back a long way. So I'm going to say Toussaint Louverture is one of those people. Gabriel Prosser is one of those people. And that was back in the Carolinas. And then you come with Nat Turner. He's one of the originals that started a solution. And a lot of people, again, just say the dominant culture look at these people as outlaws. But it's been said, never is it wrong for anyone to strike a blow for his own liberty. And that was said by one of the Americans right here.
Yes.
When they were doing the American Revolution. It's not wrong, right? But when we strike a blow for our freedom, it's wrong? No, I think not. I think not. So if we move forward to just say in the 40s and 50s, you hear about just say the civil rights movement. Back in the 40s and 50s, a lot of things happened, and we kind of skip over that. And we jump right into the 1960s, and you think about Martin Luther King and other people that came along with that, right? Malcolm X. But before that, in the 50s, there was a man called A. Philip Randolph. A. Philip Randolph is the one who initially started and had the idea for the March on Washington, D.C. that was led by Martin Luther King in '63. But A. Philip Randolph actually wanted to do that back in the 1950s. before Martin Luther King. But he was a big enough person and a man as a leader to let this thing evolve. And then Martin Luther King was the hot person at the time. So 1963, he gets all the credit for it. But I don't blame Martin Luther King for that, but that's how media and people are, right? They do what they do at the time.
Yeah.
So we have to choose sometimes who we want to be our leaders and who we recognize as heroes. And some people they recognize, like again, I can say something about Martin Luther King, and he's held up as one of the main people for civil rights and all that, and he's been somewhat accepted by the American culture as a hero. Whereas there's other people that fought and died and didn't follow the same script, and they're vilified. And Malcolm X would be one of those, but he's just as much a hero as Martin Luther King if you know your history. The Black Panthers are just as much as heroes as Martin Luther King and anybody else. But only certain people are accepted. But it's always good to teach the true history. And one thing about the Black Panthers like Bobby Seale, Eldridge Cleaver, Huey P. Newton, many others. Those people right there have been vilified, and you think about them, and you would think that these guys that are leading these things, they're probably, 40, 50 years old, doing some stuff they're working. These guys were in their 20s. They were students. And as we know, crossing racial lines, the schools and the universities have always been the place where revolution and protest gets its start. And our people are no different. We had young people in their 20s like Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, and other Panthers, Angela Davis, many others. All right? So.
Right. And even Tupac's mom was involved with that,
yes.
Right? With the Black Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
So great, had women and men.
Our guests shared poignant stories of the obstacles they encountered, from systemic racism to the lack of opportunities for Black servicemen. Despite these challenges, they persevered, driven by our equality and a desire to make a difference. Their resilience and determination are truly inspiring. FMA would also like to extend their gratitude to our guest contributors, Darrell Murkison, Richard Felton, and Sebrina Underwood, along with house pets Mango and Benji.
Sponsored by Ocean Wave Cleaning and Restoration.